shed for Warrington. It was night time again on the island of Sodor. The mainline engines had finished their work and went home to Tidmouth sheds. Sergeant Warrington and Hank were already there, talking about old times. "Sarge, can you tell us the rest of the story?" asked James. "I don't see why not. What? Gordon and Henry were excited too. They'd been thinking about it all day. "You're about to hear one of the bravest stories I've ever heard," said Hank. So Sergeant Warrington began, and here's the rest of the story he told. Back when Warrington was a corporal, he was a shunting engine at an army dockside in England. He worked with Hank and a Q1 steam engine called Neville. They also worked with a Navy tugboat called Bluenose. But one night, the engines were helping to load a battleship with supplies when the air raid sirens sounded. Moments later, they looked up to see Jerry planes approaching the dock. Corporal Warrington gave the command, and the three engines quickly evacuated the workmen to the air raid shelter. "The dock workers are all safe," said Hank. "Begin roll call. A good soldier never leaves a man behind." But then there was trouble. One of the Jerry's bombers began dropping bombs above the dock. "Incoming!" cried Neville. The bombs landed in the dock, destroying some buildings on impact. But worst of all, one of the explosions set fire to a full-loaded fuel tanker. "That's done it," said Hank. "The tanker's on fire." "It's right next to the battleship," explained Neville. "That could sink the ship." "It's worse than that," Corporal Warrington replied. "We've reloaded the battleship with fuel, ammunition and explosives." "If that goes up, the dock will be destroyed. It's Krakatoa all over again," cried Bluenose. It was then Warrington knew he needed to work fast, so he ordered his driver to charge him forward. "Corporal, stay back," shouted Neville. "It's too dangerous," added Hank. But Warrington bumped the tanker, and it flew past the battleship into an empty siding. The explosion from the tanker was big, but thankfully no damage was done. "You did it, Warrington," cheered Neville. "You saved all of us." "Just doing my duty, and it's Corporal Warrington to you." "Corporal, look up there," explained Hank. The RAF had finally arrived, and the skies was filled with Spitfires. The dogfight went on through the night. The next morning, Jerry was gone, but the dock was in a terrible mess. The four of them had to work extra hard to get things back to normal. As for Corporal Warrington, he was praised for his bravery. He was given a medal and promoted to sergeant. Even Bluenose, the Navy tug, was impressed. "Not a bad job, Warrington. Bravery like that is welcome in my Navy." Since that day, Hank and Neville have been loyal friends to Sergeant Warrington. When the story was over, Gordon, Henry and James were amazed. "I think we owe you an apology," said Gordon. "We are delighted to have a brave engine like you on our railway." "Apology accepted. But I'm sorry as well. I forgot I'm not a soldier in battle anymore. We're work colleagues." "More than that," added Henry, "we're a family." And for the first time, all the engines were friends. The next day, Hank left the island with his rail tour, and the three tender engines spoke to the fat controller. They had an idea for a gift for Warrington. Their idea was a shed of his own, so one was built. It looked like a large Nissen hut, painted army green. It was built in Knapford shunting yard, and Sergeant Warrington has stayed in his shed ever since. Outside his shed is also a tall flagpole. Every morning, Warrington asked his driver to raise the island's flag, and he salutes it with his whistle. Nowadays, Sergeant Warrington gets on well with the mainline engines. and he's helped to keep the trucks under control. He also wears a new coat of paint these days. He still has his British Army green, but now with red lining and the number 19 on his cab sides. Gordon, Henry and James are pleased for their new friend, and are very happy he has a shed of his own. But between you and me, I think they're glad that they don't get waken up by a bugle anymore.